Hello, everyone. So the thing I wanted to talk about here is just this sheet that I have that goes over some of the basics of summary writing. Summary writing is the type of writing that you will do that's incredibly important and that you may have done in the past, especially if you were asked to do a summary assignment. But it's nice to kind of think about it again if you're going to do that type of writing to incorporate into your research. So a summary is a neutral and objective piece of writing that covers the main idea and major points of an article. That's the simplest way to think of a summary. It's like a report. It's a report on the article that has been read without offering evaluation or anything like that. It's just sort of a little quick, concise piece of writing that covers what happened in the article or the study, whatever the document is that you're using as a source. So, one of the things I like to point out about summary writing is that it really is distinguishable from the writing around it. You should be able, even if you put a summary in the middle of a longer paragraph, you should be able to draw a box around it and say, look, there's the summary. Because a summary is also one of the ways that you can incorporate a source into your paper. You can summarize it, you can paraphrase it, you can quote it. So paraphrasing and quoting are the things that we tend to think of when we think about incorporating sources, but summary is a completely valid way of doing it as well. So typically, I recommend that you write no more than a paragraph length. So we're talking about summaries, even if it's for you can write a summary of a book in a single sentence. My suggestion is to stick to summaries that are somewhere, depending on how long the source is, somewhere between 3 to maybe no more than 8 sentences long. Even 8 sentences is a bit of a stretch. I think that pretty much anything can be summarized in about 5 sentences. The first thing you want to do is let your reader know that you're summarizing. You don't do this, then you're not offering any kind of background and you're essentially plagiarizing. If you're taking ideas from a source and just putting them into your paper without including this sentence, then you're not doing your due diligence of doing APA. You don't put citations after summaries, those in-text citations in parentheses. They don't go after summaries because you're summarizing the whole thing. If you're summarizing a 30-page paper, it would be dumb to write in parentheses, the author's name and then the year of publication and then pages 1 through 30. That doesn't help the reader locate the information. The way that you let the reader know that you are relying on a source is you set it up with a strong first sentence. In the first sentence, you want to include rhetorical information so that your author knows you're referring to a source. I said at least 3 here. That's kind of a new rule I just made up. If you can only find 2, it's okay. But it's a good idea to try and push yourself to get 3 of these into your sentence. And you can see down here that I have 3 in my fake examples. Rhetorical information is information about the article. What are the author's full name? Full names. What is the title of the document, of the article, the study, whatever it is, the source? What's the publication year? If you can't find that, which does happen, try and say what the type of source is. If it's a website, include that. If it is, you can include the publication name if it's a newspaper or if it's a magazine. It's not a bad idea to include all of this information. And in fact, I just remembered, you know what? I included 4 pieces. I'll go ahead and give myself the credit for that. Because here I identified the type of source, that it is in fact a document. So here you might say, website, or you might say article, or you might say scholarly article, or you might say newspaper article. But these are just ways of giving some information to the reader about the source. So these are 2 sample sentences, and you can see there are different ways of incorporating them. You could follow either of these models. You could create your own. Here I have author name, publication year, type of document, title of document. Here I have type of source, I have the title, I have the author listed here, and I have the publication year here. it can go in different formats. This is the way, if you want to stick it after the name, this is how it should look. Different ways of setting this up. And then after, when you've included that rhetorical information at the first part of your sentence, then you include the main idea, and that's what's in blue. And that's why it's the same for each of them. You can see that this information that I have here tells the reader that you are about to deliver a summary. One thing that you might notice here is that because the type of document I have is like an article, I put it in quotation marks. If this were from a magazine, let's say I'd written this for the New York Times, which I absolutely did not, I would put that in italics. Just a little reminder there. The next thing that you want to do in your summary is include attributive tags. An attributive tag, sometimes they're called signal phrases. You might have heard them called something else because, as you probably know by now, in English class, there's 100 different names for the same thing. But I'm going to call them attributive tags. Attributive tags give credit to the original work. I like the phrase attributive tags because they're essentially like hashtags for the academic world. They give credit to the original work and they remind the reader that they're reading someone else's ideas, not yours. So include in at least every other sentence of the summary. You might think that that sounds crazy. In the sample that I have down here, I put one in every single sentence. If you switch them up and you don't just say according to every single time, if you change them up, following some of the examples down here, nobody's going to notice that you have them in every single sentence. So at least every other sentence of the summary. These keep reminding the reader that they're reading somebody else's ideas. So you can formulate them lots of different ways. You can use the author's last name and then use a series of verbs. You can use, not a series, pick one. So you could say, Shaw states, Shaw demonstrates, Shaw then explains, and that's why the etc. is there. Because you can keep going with these verbs as long as they are nice and neutral. So you want to stay away from words like hates, argues, whines. Those are going to throw off the balance of your nice, neutral, and objective piece of writing. But if you stick with words like shows, charts, illustrates, states, demonstrates, explains, if you stick with those kinds of words, you're in good shape as far as creating your attributive tags. These brackets obviously mean that you would fill in the information as applicable. So here I would say, the article or the document shows, or actually, let me change this up a little bit. You would say, in this case, if you're using the title, you would say summary writing, and you would put it in its correct punctuation, whether it's in quotes or in italics, shows, charts, illustrates, and then I'll add one back in here, the type of document I'll even come up with some more. Let's see if I can come up with some more verbs on the fly. That's as far as I got. Oh, proofread myself. All right. So the type of document, so here you might say, this study explores, this study highlights. You can come up with your own words here. In this, and then here you could say, in this study, article, news story, etc., according to Shaw, or according to summary writing, you could put the author or the author's name or the title right there. This is probably the most famous attributive tag. You've probably used this a lot. These are just examples. You can use different ones. An attributive tag is basically your way of reminding the reader that they're reading someone else's thoughts. The example summary paragraph I've included here, I've color-coded so you can see. In purple, I have every single sentence has one, and this one has two. Kathleen Shaw's 2020 document, Summary Writing, goes over the basics of creating an effective summary paragraph. Shaw explains that while it is difficult to boil an entire article down to the main points, actually crafting a summary can be simple. The document provides a few guidelines for creating a strong topic sentence and summaries, and it concludes with an emphasis on the importance of including attributive tags throughout. That's that's fine. If you're wondering why I read that out loud, and you're thinking, Miss Shaw, I know how to read, the reason I did was so that you could hear it sounding not awkward. I have attributive tags. There's only 1, 2, 3 sentences. This first paragraph is a form of attributive tag. So I've got like 5 attributive tags in a 3-sentence paragraph. And when you read it out loud, all it sounds like is a summary. So don't be afraid of attributive tags as long as you mix it up. So obviously you wouldn't want to say Shaw explains, Shaw documents, Shaw concludes, because that gets a little bit old. Mix it up though, and you're good to go. And I do think that this is true, what I said in this paragraph. Coming up with what to say from an article can be difficult. Figuring out what's a major detail and what minor details like stats and specific numbers need to be left out, that can be difficult. But the actual crafting of a summary in terms of getting in all the elements is not. So hopefully that helps as a little bit of an explanation of how to create a summary.